Thank you for coming to our very first Trello Tech Talk, how to build up Trello Power-Up in an hour. I'll be your host today, Levin Mejia. I'm a product designer at Trello working on the platform team. And the person leading this presentation today is Bentley Cook, developer advocate at Trello on the platform team as well. So thank you very much again, everyone, for coming. And say hi, Bentley.
Hey, everyone.
Let's introduce yourself. Awesome, great. So I'm going to switch off my screen right now from my that I'm sharing right now, and I'm going to hand it over to Bentley. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And like I said, if you have any questions throughout this session, put them in through the questions and answer section on the right-hand pane and go to webinar. And I'll be happy to answer questions as we go through. So Bentley, I believe you are now the presenter.
Cool, and I'm assuming you can see my screen, a very pretty Trello board.
Yes, I can.
Awesome.
Can everyone else see that? Maybe you can let us know. Yeah, it looks good. Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. So I'll take it away from here, Bentley.
Cool. Well, thank you, Levin, and thank you, everyone, for being here today. Super excited to talk about power-ups, and we're going to build a power-up today. But before we dive into that, let's talk about what a power-up is for some of those that may not know. We have over here in the menu a nice little power-ups button, and on any Trello board, you can hop in here and you can see all the power-ups that we have available. And power-ups are kind of like add-ons for Trello. So you can see tools in here that you might be familiar with, Box, Bitbucket, maybe third-party tools that you use. Turning on these power-ups add in some information from those services to your Trello board. But they don't have to work with a third-party tool. We have some standalone ones that do neat things too. So one of the ones I like to show off is Calendar. So I just hit Enable, and just like that, I've got a little bit of extra functionality on my Trello board. And you notice a little button popped up here. We call that a board button. And when I click on that, you'll see I get a nice calendar view, unsurprising, and I have my card in there. So that's the card that I have on this board, and it's pulling the date from my due date. You know, I can check it and change it around a little bit. Move it. Let me go check out my calendar, and it's updated. And so power-ups are intended to be kind of composed together. You know, you have a board maybe that's for your product team, and that's where they track deadlines and kind of brainstorming ideas. Maybe you have a board for your engineering team, and that's where they track pull requests, that sort of thing. So power-ups are meant to take Trello to the next level and add a little bit of extra functionality. And in addition to having these public power-ups, and we'll talk a little bit later about what is required to make a public power-up, you can actually have custom power-ups. So you and your team, you know, let's say you have a very specific process, the way you like to do things, and you say, man, it'd be really great if Trello enabled us to kind of dial this in a little bit more. Like, let's say, for instance, you wanted to track time on a Trello card. You have, you know, this is a project, and it's like finish mockups. And you want to be able to track how long work is taking on that as a way of also understanding kind of the state of the card. Sounds reasonable? Well, that's what we're going to build today. And to build it, we're going to use this really great tool called Glitch. So you can go check out glitch.com/Trello. And Glitch is a community tool for building little web projects. It's amazing for throwing something together really quickly and having a kind of MVP proof of concept out the door super fast. And so we actually, on our Trello page here, we have some example Power-Up projects, and we're going to use one today to get started. So it's called Trello Power-Up Skeleton. Let's hop into that. What we can do in Glitch is, this is a set of code, and you know, similar to forking code and Git, we can grab our own copy of it, and so we're going to do that by remixing our own. And by remixing, what is happening here is Glitch is spinning up our own copy of this project. So it's given it a new random name, and you can see here's our IDE. So we can hop in and we can see the code. Very cool. We can make changes to it. We can see it live, and we can rename it. So let's start there. We'll call it Power-Up Webinar. Great, and I'm going to go check it out live. It's going to open a new tab. And so I've got a HTML page coming across there. So what this project was is Powerup Skeleton. It's just kind of a bare bones set of code that you need to get started with a Powerup. And you can see we've got a server, which is running Node for us, and so it's just spinning up this nice little Express server. And for those of you that aren't familiar with Express, all we're doing here is if for every type of request that is a GET, we're just sending back this index.html, and then for anything else, if we have a static file, it's going to look for that static file in public. So let's go check out our index.html. Okay, so that looks like the live page that we were seeing. And the really cool thing about Glitch that makes Glitch awesome is it live updates. There's no need to do anything except for just type. So I'm going to change that around, and just like that, my page is updated. So easy enough. All right, so we've got this bare bones project, and what we probably want to do first is get this registered with Trello. The bare bones project gives us a manifest.json, and we'll dive into what the manifest is and the architecture of a Powerup a little bit later on. But just take my word here and follow along. The manifest we need to grab to register with Trello, so we can see it's coming out of public. So we go grab it and just tell it manifest.json. Cool. That looks like the manifest file that we were just looking at. So let's grab that URL. And we're going to hop over to trello.com/powerup/admin. So this is where you're able to add Powerups, custom Powerups to your team. You saw how to enable Powerups that weren't custom on boards. This is how you make those custom Powerups available. So you can see here, I'm a member of a number of teams. If you don't see any teams here, that means you're not an admin on a Trello team. So to add a custom Powerup to a Trello team, you have to be an admin. So if you don't see something here, that's why. We're going to hop over to our webinar team and click Create New Powerup. We'll give it a name. And lo and behold, there's our manifest URL. And the way I know that this team the reason I'm using this team is because if I go check out my board, I can actually see right here the team that the board I'm using is on. So I know to grab webinar team, and that's why I'm adding it there. So let me go ahead and register. You'll see I've signed a joint developer agreement. You might be prompted if you haven't created a custom Powerup before. You may be prompted to go ahead and fill that out. That just lets us know who you are as you're building things. You click Save. All right. Trello Power-Up webinar successfully saved. So let me go back to my Trello board, and let's see if it works. I'm going to disable this. And yep, cool. We've got a brand new Power-Up in our list. You can see it looks just like every other Power-Up. We get a little bit of information about it. It's called Sprints. And let's change that. That doesn't make a lot of sense because we're building something that's time tracking. So I'm going to go back over to very, very handy Glitch. And as you can probably discern here, the manifest is letting Trello know a little bit of information about the Powerup. So when you enable a Powerup, Trello is looking at this manifest for more information. So here's where the name's being pulled from. Call it time tracking. We've got that nice little description. We can actually do some fun things. You know, we could toss in Markdown is actually supported in here, so we could do some Markdown if we wanted. We're pulling an icon, and the nice thing about Glitch is it kind of packs everything all up together, so we can actually hop over to our assets, and you're able to upload files and view them, and here you can see that we're given a URL, so that is what's being pasted right here. Author, and then some capabilities. All right, so let's dive into the Powerup architecture and what these capabilities really are. We've got this manifest file, so that's how you kind of register with Trello and say, hey, this is some kind of meta information about my Powerup. And in the manifest, you can see that it actually has a connector URL, index.html, the same one we were looking at earlier. What happens when you enable a Powerup on a Trello board? what Trello does is it loads the iframe, it loads that connector HTML into a hidden iframe on the board. So when we click Enable, what's actually just happened is it's pulled in our connector page and put it as a hidden iframe. And so let's go check that out, because this is where the cool stuff kind of really happens. Is, you know, this, we can't see this, it's a hidden iframe, like I said. We're pulling in the Trello Power-Up client library. So this is where we've packed all of the code, and all the cool things that you can do with Trello are all part of this library, so you want to include that. And most importantly, you want to point to a JavaScript file somewhere. In this case, we're looking at client.js, so let's go take a look at that. All right, this is starting to look like something we can play around with. So this is where we initialize our Power-Up, and this is really where we do all of the cool stuff. This is where we tell Trello what we want to happen with our Power-Up. We had in our manifest there some capabilities, and these capabilities are UX hooks that we give you that as a developer you can say, hey, I want to add this functionality to my Power-Up. The calendar, you know, had a nice button in the top right that was called a board button, and as you can probably guess, a card button gives you a button on a card. There are also card badges. In fact, there are all kinds of really cool capabilities, and we have them all documented at developers.trello.com. You can see there are a number of capabilities that let you do all kinds of different things. Card badges, card detail badges, some neat show settings, some authorization helpers. But to get started, we're just going to use card buttons. My thinking is we want to add a button to the back of the card that allows you to start tracking time. So we're letting Trello know that we want that it should expect for us to use card buttons, and tracing this again. So here from our connector, hop over here from our connector to our client.js. All right, so let's initialize this capability that we've told Trello we want to make use of. Because at the point in time that Trello loads, it's going to say, hey, what should I do? You told me you wanted card buttons. Here, I'm asking you for card buttons. Give me something back. And this is where we define what we want to give back. So we're given a function, or we write a function that is passed in T, which is a reference to the Trello client library, so the Trello Power-Up library. And so that's where we'll use to do some of the other neat things, but we'll get into that in a little bit. And then options. The options is just an object that contains some information about the context that we're in. So again, this is we're saying, hey, Trello, when you have the context of you need to know what card buttons you want our Power-Up to display, call this function, and Trello is going to pass these things into us. So we're able to let Trello know what card buttons we want. And to get started, we're going to get rid of this stuff that came as part of the boilerplate. And let's just call this track time. So we're just going to return an array that contains a single object in this instance that has an icon and some text, and that is it. All right. So that is a bare bones button. Let's go check it out. Refresh. And nothing happens here because we're not in the context of a card back. Oh, look at that. We've got a brand new button right there on the back of the card. Power-ups are given their own little namespace in the card buttons, and there's our button. Very Trello-y looking, and when we click it, not a whole lot happens right now. Yep, nothing really happening. So let's add some functionality. Close this tab. All right, so we probably want something to happen when the user clicks the button. So we're gonna take this a step further. We're gonna change the name up a little bit. This is gonna be called console log, and then we're gonna also pass in a callback. So this callback, if you'll notice, was one of the capabilities that we outlined in our manifest. And this capability allows us to add a bit of dynamic back and forth to our capabilities. In this case, at the point in time that the user clicks the button that we've defined, we want this function to be called. And again, Trello will call this function and pass in the T reference as well as the options object. Here we're going to get started just by doing something, a little console log, just as a proof of concept. So let's refresh and hop over to console. And just like that, every time I click it, I get a console log. Cool. Making some progress. So let's take this a little bit further because that's not very exciting. I was thinking, maybe when the user clicks the button, we get a nice little visual, a window that tells us that gives us like some information about the state of our time tracking. So I'm going to upgrade what we have a little bit, and in our callback here, I'm going to lean into that T object and use one of the methods that we provide to you. T.Popup is a way of telling Trello, hey, the user's clicked this thing, you've called me. Now what I want you to do, Trello, is show a pop-up in the context of where the user's clicked. I want it to have this title, and I want it to show this HTML page and be this height. Cool? Makes sense. We probably want to go ahead and create that HTML page, so we'll do that. We want it to be public, and this is just HTML, so we'll call it popup.html. And to get started, let's just do a nice little header, emoji, and that's it. And what's cool is if we wanted to, we could go check this out live. So I've got it open already. I should be able to say popup.html. And look at that. Cool. Glitch is pretty sweet. It makes that really easy. Let's refresh our page here. And so now when we click this, instead of console logging, what we expect is for Trello to show us a nice little Trello pop-up. And look at that. We get a nice header. We get the HR. Trello takes care of doing some of the trickier things, and it feels very Trello-y, right? So you can click off and it closes. You can click X and it closes. And you'll notice it has the same shape and format as these other buttons. So that's really nice. What that means is that using that T.Popup, you can make something that feels very much, like a part of Trello framework. But we want to do a little bit more here. That HTML page, the H1's kind of boring. So let's take that to the next level. We're just going to toss in some HTML here. You can see that we've got in our body, we've got a span that tells us the start time, the stop time. We've got a nice little button called track time. We're also pulling in a new JavaScript file. But if we go check out up here, we had this really cool thing happen. We're pulling in this style sheet that Trello provides for you. And what this does is it contains a number of styles so that you can do as little styling as necessary, and you get kind of a real Trello-y feel to it. So if we go and check this out now, actually before we check it out, I'm going to go ahead and add in, we want this popup.css. So it's public CSS popup.css. And because I know where I'm going with this, I probably need a hidden class, just going to display none, nothing too fancy happening here. And then I was also pulling in popup.js. We'll leave that as is for now and get that in a minute. So let's refresh this and let's check out our new button. All right, cool, very nice. So we're getting an error down here. That's expected because we don't have that JavaScript file yet. But you can kind of see where this is headed, right? We want this pop-up to happen if there's a start time. We want it displayed here. If there's a stop time, we want it to stay displayed here. And we want to be able to use this button to track time. And you'll notice again, like this is a default Trello button. I didn't do anything fancy in my HTML. All I did was give it the mod primary class, which is one of the classes that is included in that Powerup.css. And out of the box, I got this nice, really kind of Trello-y feel to it. Something that makes it easy for users to kind of track what's going on. They're used to seeing these buttons throughout Trello, so it's a great thing to use. But it's kind of disappointing, right? Right now, our button doesn't do anything. It's kind of tall and awkward looking. Like these other buttons look really nice. They're the height that you'd expect. This one's kind of tall and gangly, like, we don't want all that space down there. So we're going to take care of that. And we're going to do that by adding in that other JavaScript file that we're talking about. So we're going to hop in, we're going to call public, and this is going to be JS, popup.js. Add that file in. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull in our Trello Power-Up. So again, in the context of where we are, remember, first the connector's loaded, and then after the connector's loaded, Trello calls to us and says, hey, what do you want me to do? And we say, Trello, we want pop-up, so we call t.popup, and so it renders this. So because of that stack and the way those calls are being made, we still have reference to our Trello Power-Up client library on the window, so we can still do some of the magical things that we provide in that client library. So the first thing we're going to do is let's add a little bit of functionality to our button. We're just going to make sure that we're not doing anything too crazy here. We're going to console log. Let's go check that out really quickly. Refresh. Track time. Track time. All right, we're getting a console log there. Nice. Button works as expected. But let's get rid of this. That's really bothering me. What we want to do is we could call document.onload and then try and figure out how tall we are. But the nice thing is that because we have reference to that t object, we can use this method called t.render. T.render exists so that Trello calls this render method at the point in time that it knows something needs to be rendered. Sometimes, maybe some data or state changes, and your PowerPoint wants to take advantage of that and make some changes. So now's the time that Trello would call out and say, hey, you need to re-render, and it does so by calling the function that you provide. So it works similar to a document onload, but has some nuances that are pretty meaningful when you get deeper into building power-ups. For right now, all we're going to do in there is add this t.size2. So again, using the Trello Power-Up client library, this method called size2, we give it a selector, our content, and if you notice in our HTML, pop-up.html, we have div ID content, so that is what we're going to size to. So let's see if that cleaned up the problem that we were having. Track time, ooh, nice. Feeling a lot more Trello-y. All right, so we've got this button. Still not doing anything but console logging. And it's a little bit weird because normally if I click that button, I probably want it to close. So let me get it closing. We can do that by using, again, this client library. And you'll be surprised by how many cool little things there are in here. If you check out the documentation in the client library, there are all kinds of methods and functions that you can use to do some really nice Trello-y things while building your Power-Up. So we're going to keep leaning into that. We're going to call t.closePopup, and that should do exactly what it sounds like it's going to do. That's just going to close our pop-up after we click that button. All right, cool. Let's do a little bit more. We want to start tracking some time. If only we had a way to store data, right? We could here, at the point in time that the user clicks the button, maybe make a call out to a third-party service and say, hey, what time is it? I want to start tracking time, or here's an ID, start tracking time for me. But that gets a little bit messy and requires, a third-party service. We've baked into the client library a really nice set of data manipulation methods. So here they're called t.set, and there's another one we'll see, t.get. And what they allow you to do is they allow you to store data within the context of the Power-Up. So you get to use Trello Power-Ups as, we've given you a tiny little back end that you can make use of, and it's great for storing things like this. So when the user clicks track time, we're going to say t.set, and we give t.set the scope at which, or the level at which we want it stored. So you can pass in board, card, member, and then the visibility scope, shared or private. So shared means that anyone that has read access will be able to see it. Private means only the person that is setting it will be able to see it. And then a key, start time, and then the value that we want stored there. And t.set returns a promise. So we're able to kick off a promise chain and keep this function nice and clean. So after we've stored the time, we're just storing the current date, we're going to close our pop-up. All right, let's go give that a try. And again, you notice I don't have to refresh, I don't have to save. It's actually funny if you hit save, Glitch yells at you and says, "Hey, I already saved for you. Quit hitting save." It's a hard habit to get over in Glitch. So we'll go over here and we'll refresh this just to clean up our console. We're gonna hit track time. We're gonna hit track time. I want to think that something happened, but I'm not positive. So I'm going to show you how to check out using our API to see if there's any data set. So normally when you use our API, you have to go to api.trello.com and pass in your API key and a token. But so long as you're logged into Trello, well, we can actually use this nice little shortcut. So Trello.com/1, we're going to go to boards. And we're passing in this short ID here. I got this just from, oh, that's the card. I actually do want that. I grabbed the short ID of the card here, and I'm going to go to cards, pass in that short ID. And so since we're already logged in, we can use this little shortcut to play around with things. And this is just using the cookie that's stored normally from using Trello. All right, so there is our card. And it has all of the normal responses back from the API we expect. It's got the link to it. It's got the name to it. So what we want now is we want to go check out whether that data was stored. So we can go to plugin data. Cool. So here we see the scope that we said, the access that we specified, the ID model. This is the ID of the card because we're storing it on the card. And then the ID plugin is actually the ID of our Powerup. And you can see it's a stringified object here. We've got a start time key with a value of our date. Nice. So we know data is being stored. What do we want to do now? Let's go ahead and if we have a track time, or if we've started tracking time, right, we wanted to update this. So let's hop back over to our popup.js, and we're going to do a little bit of logic here, right? So we've rendered, and we may or may not have some data stored, so we should probably check to see if we do have data stored. And here's where that nice sibling function from t.set comes into play. Very similarly, we can use t.get to pull that data back out. And so we're going to say, go see if in plugin data we have something at the card that is shared for the key start time. And again, returning a promise, so kicking off our promise chain. If we do have it, let's go ahead and update start time and then just size to everything. Nice. Refresh here. And go to track time. Oh yeah, there we go. So we've got a new track time. We can probably click this. And it closes 13:33, so a different time. All right. Well, that's not super helpful because we probably want to be able to clear time to be able to see all the different states, to test all the states. So let's go back over to our client.js, and we're going to add a nice little button, another button here. This is just going to be a helper one that's temporary. And so remember, we were returning an array of objects. Each object in the array represented the button. The buttons were able to have a callback, which is the function that Trello calls when the user clicks the button. And so here, we're just going to say t.remove. Again, you'll notice a nice little helper method. This one very similar to t.set and t.get. This is just going to delete this stuff from our plugin data. So we're going to get rid of an array of keys, start time, stop time, at the card, and shared. So let's go refresh and see if that button shows up. All right. And we are going to go look over here. Here's our plugin data. Yep, we've got something. We're going to say clear time and go over here, refresh. Sure enough, it's gone. And in our track time button, it's gone. Nice. Okay. So track time, we see it. Clear time, it's gone. All right, this is starting to feel a little bit more useful. So what do we want to do next? I think that we probably want to, at the point in time that we call t-dot, or that Trello calls t.render, we know that we've got some extra information this time around, right? So we know that we've got a start time. We're updating it. Let's make this look a little bit nicer. We probably want to change the state of the button. We're going to use some more of those nice Trello-y classes that are provided. We're going to update the button a little bit. And very similarly, we're using the promise chain, so t.get, doing these things, and then sizing 2. So let's go check that out. Our button should look a little bit different. Let's clear it. All right, as expected, we're going to track time. Okay. Nice. So this time, our start time's there. We have changed the button here to look a little bit, more warning, a little bit more dangerous. So let's correspondingly probably want to, at the point in time that this is clicked now, we want to track the stop time just like we did with the start time. So let's update this method. And now we're just doing a nice little if-else. If we already have a start time, go ahead and track a stop time. If we don't have a start time, that means that this is our first time. We are beginning to track time. So let's grab that. Let's go check that out. Track time. We'll clear time first. Clear time. We're going to say track time. All right. Nice. So we've got our start time in there, and this time we should hit stop time. And instead of saving a new start time, we're going to save a new key, stop time. And look at that, we've got it in there. So very similar to before, we can update our renderer such that it does a little check to see if there is a start time, if there's a stop time. So let's walk through that. All right, I'm introducing a new method here. This one's called t.getAll. And what it does is it returns every key and value at the scope and permissions that you're asking. So this time we're going to get everything in there, and we're going to do just a little bit of object destructuring. This just gives us the stop time and start time variables. And this time we're saying if there is a start time and stop time, go ahead and hide the button. We're all done. Let's update the values here so that we're showing the start time and stop time. And then if we only have a start time, then let's go ahead and change it to the stop time, so what we saw before. Otherwise, everything gets left alone. So let's go here, refresh. We'll clear a time, track time, stop time. All right, nice. So now we don't have our button. We're able to track the time. Very cool. We've got a clear time button. That's all well and good, and it certainly allows someone to come in, and on a card start tracking time. All right, so now I've got a bunch of cards, and they all have time tracked on them. But this one I've only started time. These two have stop times, and we can add another. And this one doesn't have any time, but I can't really tell. Like, I'm looking at this board, and if I were trying to figure out what needs to be worked on or what hasn't been worked on, I'd be at a total loss for what's happening. So let's add that. We want to build something that adds as much perspective as possible to our users. We want someone to come in here and say, oh, I know exactly what's happening. So we're going to use another one of those capabilities that we were playing around with earlier. So we're going to hop back over to our client.js. So again, this is the JavaScript file that is being loaded onto the hidden iframe when the Powerup's enabled, and we're telling Trello what we want to happen whenever it's in the context of the card buttons. It reaches out and says, hey, what method do you want me, or what function do you want me to call? And we're saying, hey, this is the function, we're giving you some buttons. Let's add in another one. Let's add in a little badge to show on the front of the card kind of the state of the card in terms of time tracking. This is to, just a little visual indicator to let someone know where things are at. So we're going to use a new capability, so make sure to add it to your manifest. All of the time, people will start adding in new capabilities just to this file here, and they're like, it's not working. It's almost always because you forgot to add it to the manifest. So always remember to declare the capabilities you want in your manifest. So we're going to call it card badges. And in our client.js, we're going to add in another capability. And all of the capabilities have a pattern that looks, they all follow a very similar pattern. We've got a key, a function, we're getting access to the Trello object, we're getting some context in the options there. And in this case, very, very similarly to before, we're expected to just return an array of objects, and each object is going to represent the card badge that we want shown. Let's see, I'm going to say it blue. So based on the way this one works, I guess that we're going to get a card badge that has a thumbs up as the text. The black rocket icon will be the icon, and the color of the badge will be blue. So let's go give that a try. We'll do a refresh. Nice, look at that. We've got a badge now on every single card. That's exactly what we expect. But a little bit confusing here because we've got the same badge on every single card. We want to differentiate them a little bit. And so what happens is card badges actually gets called once per a card. So we could, pass in a random function here. We could reach out to something and get some, new data. This is being called in the context. Each card is having this function called. So what that means is we can use that t.getAll, and we know that we're in the context of the card, so we can get all of the data that we have stored from the stuff that we were doing earlier, and very similarly to before, we can say, hey, if we've got the start time or the stop time, let's change the button around a little bit. So we're setting the default to red, and we're making the text just a little person waving, and we're saying, all right, if we've got a start time and a stop time, that means don't touch this card. Probably want to make it green. Everything's all good. Work is complete on this. If we only have a start time, that means someone's probably heads down. It's yellow. It's in progress. No need to yell just yet. And then our default is it doesn't have a start time or a stop time, which is, hey, we need to take a look here, and it's red. And so we're just returning that array. So we could have multiple, we could return multiple objects here, but we really only want this one. So let's go check that out. We'll do a little refresh. Oh, nice, just like that. Now we can see each state of our start time and stop time tracked here. So if you watch over here, I bet when I hit track time, yep, I have them heads down, and then let me stop tracking time. Nice. So I'm all good. And then when I hit clear time, it's updated. Cool. So just like that, we have the ability to show the different states of the data that we have. No need for a third-party backend. We're storing it all in Trello. We can go see that one's all gone. So there we have it. you can imagine how easy it would be to take this and extend it a little bit further, where you show some context. Maybe if the card is underway, so it only has a start time, you could add another badge that displays how long the card has been worked on. Like you could do some filtering here and say, hey, this has been underway for 3 days. Let's add an extra special warning badge. So you have all kinds of opportunities to play around and really build a power-up that allows you and your team to have the process that you want in Trello. Cool. So you've built an awesome power-up, and you're like, man, I actually think that other Trello users could get some use out of this. I wonder how I get it listed in this nice power-up menu over here. Well, we have a process for that. In our documentation, we have a guide on submitting your power-up. There's a review process, and we just grab that power-up and we say, hey, does it do what it says it does on the tin? We give it a try, and after putting it through a few paces, we'll launch it into the power-up library, and you can check out all of the Trello power-ups at trello.com/powerups. So if you've built something really cool that you want to share with millions of Trello users, let us know. We want to see it, and we want to make sure that we share it. And with that, I am all done with how to build a power-up really quickly in an hour. If anyone wants to grab this code, you actually can. If you go to glitch.com, I'll open it up again here, and we called it Utility Power-Up Webinar. You'll have your own copy of this project, and you can remix it yourself. So have at it. Let's see, with that, we'll hop over. Stop my screen sharing.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Bentley. That was great. I learned a lot. This is the third time I watched it, so I think I can do one now. So that's great. Thanks again, Bentley, very much. And now we're going to set this up for the Q&A. So for the questions to come through, I believe it's just admins that can see it. And Anthony, yeah, only 45 minutes it took to build this. So I'm just going to lower everyone's hands in the chat, so then start anew, because sometimes that way we can see who would like to ask a question. So thanks so much again, everyone, for attending. And now this is a great time for you to participate in this webinar. If you can just raise your hand to the webinar panel there, I'll see that being raised, and I'll go to you to ask us a question. If you're too shy to do an audio question, that's quite okay. Just submit a question through the chat within the GoToWebinar panel as well. So, all right. All right. Anyone want to have any questions on the presentation or any questions around power-ups in general? All right. So Jess has a question, Bentley, and she says, I'll read this out for the group. Can you go through the process of how to find and add the manifest URL very slowly, please? It's a good one, because it's easy to miss.
So let's see, you should be able to see my screen again. And yeah, I'm on my main screen. So, oh, nice. It looks like we've already got someone checking out the power-up. So after you've remixed your own, you can hit Show Live, and this takes you to just this HTML page, and yours should be updated at the point in time that you remix it. Yours should update with the new name of the project, and you just add on to the end there, manifest.json. And that should give you the manifest, and you just grab that URL and head over to Trello.com/powerups admin. Give that a second to load. Find the team, and again, you need to be an admin on the team. So if you don't see any lists, if you don't see any names here, that means you're not an admin on a team. You just go there. You hit create new power-up, give it a name, and paste it in and hit save.
Awesome. And again, this is being recorded as well. So if you want to go through back through the steps, we will share the recording within a week or so. Then you'll be able to rewatch any of the steps that Bentley has gone through. But I hope that helped, Jess. Anyone else have any questions? Again, if you're shy, you can certainly put it in through the questions panel, or we can take an audio if you just want to like raise your hand within GoToWebinar. What I really like about this presentation, Bentley, is that you can show how much parts of Trello you can manipulate to make your Power-Up really useful. So like the badges on the card front are such an interesting way of showing that something is happening. And that sometimes kind of gets missed sometimes when like everyone's working on many different things. It's cool that your Power-Up can like leverage that, and especially emojis.
Yeah,
emojis
and
are always good.
it's nice too. You can do, it's really powerful, pun intended. But you can actually make, asynchronous requests out to a third-party service. So, that's how these, when you check on the status of a pull request in Bitbucket, you can go and get data from other places. So maybe you and your team have some proprietary, piece of software that sits behind the firewall, and you want to go grab data from it. You can with these nice little badges, and it feels so Trello-y. That's what I love about it is, we give you the ability to add in, just like a Trello, just like Trello does, we give you the ability to build something that feels very, very much like Trello. So yeah, it's a lot of fun to build these things.
Mm-hmm, definitely. So we have our first raised hand for a question, and it's Julie. So I'm just going to unmute your mic, Julie, and we should be able to hear you now.
Hey, Julie.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so go through the card badges section that you did at the end real quick. Yeah.
Okay.
Like the var, that first var there. That's a complex statement there. And,
Yeah.
and that one statement with the var there, card shared equals shared data. That was the statement that got me.
So I did this to have brief code at the expense of it being very confusing. This is object destructuring. So what this would look like, not like this, is a number of if statements because this object is so deeply nested. This is just a way to unpack it really easily. So I can actually, if you're curious, we can do console.log and Json. We'll actually take a look at what this looks like raw when we get it. So this is what it looks like the different times that it's called. This card doesn't have any data set for it. This card has just a start time, and so you can see it's an object within an object within an object. And so that's what I'm doing here, is just unpacking it. And again, this is a confusing line, but I did it just for the sake of brevity.
Yeah, okay. So the shared data is the var.
Stop time and start time are the two variables we get out of it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. All right, I'm just going to be muting Julie.
Here's a question, Zach. How easy is it to pull down the code and upload it to GitHub or another repository from Glitch? It's actually super easy in the share. No, let's see. Is it up here? Yeah, so up here in advanced options, you can actually import from GitHub and export to GitHub, as well as download the project. So they give you a lot of options to move it around. So yeah, if you want to hop in here, you should be able to download the project.
Okay, awesome. Okay, great. I think Doug had a question as well. Are there any special requirements for using Power-Ups? I seem to recall a business account being needed before, but I haven't checked recently. So, Doug, I see that you wrote there again to say that you kind of looked it up. And right now, Power-Ups, Trello users are limited to 1 Power-Up, and then to 3 Power-Ups with a gold account, and unlimited Power-Ups if you upgrade to a business class account. And Julie, I'm sorry, I kind of just see your questions there now. You said you were willing to type, so I apologize if you didn't want to do the other question, but I see it now. All right. Any further questions that you have for our group? I think Bentley's going through this. I don't know, Bentley, I think I may have lost your audio there for a second, so if there was something I thought you were trying to finish, then certainly go ahead and do that.
I know, I was just grabbing a drink of water.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool. Sometimes you can't tell with not being in the same room. So I was trying to like see through time and space, but it's cool. Okay, great to see. You're back. Okay. All right. Jess has a question. Where can we get the link to this video when the session is done? So we're hoping to have the recording done about within a week. And then I'm going to send a personal email out to people where you can find it. It could be potentially on the developer site, or we may create a blog post and the video will be there. But we will also try to put it up on YouTube, so you can just watch it there as well. We'll certainly email you with the link to that. Give us about a week or so to get the recording done. Because we also want to get all these resources and links that Bentley went through. Obviously, it's very hard to kind of see URLs or keep them all in mind and write them down quickly. I'll make sure to send those out to you as well. Okay, and Bentley has this great blog post here, I think.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you're just itching to get going and going a little bit further than what we did today, there's a series of blog posts at tech.trello.com that allow you to start. They walk you through a little bit of what we just went through, and a great way to follow along via reading on what was going on. So definitely go give that a look if you want to start building today.
Yeah, awesome. That's a great resource. It's a great blog to always check and to keep bookmarked as well. So we have about 4 minutes left. So if you have any questions or any comments in general that you may have, certainly let us know. Because you're all such great attendees, I will let you know that we are working on a way to display Power-Ups better within Trello. So to have featured Power-Ups and to like maybe group different Power-Ups in different categories so they're easier to find. So if you've used Power-Ups in the past, you probably we have a very long list now of Power-Ups, which is great, but it's not as good user experience in terms of browsing through all those. So the great news is that we are working on a new layout and a new display for Power-Ups, which is very exciting. We think that this will be a great way to highlight new Power-Ups, maybe some popular Power-Ups, and to learn more about them. So definitely keep an eye out for that. It's quite exciting. Okay, so we have 3 minutes left. Bentley, while we wait, any potential last questions? Is there anything you want to add or something you want to like just mention again?
No, I would say go check out, if you want to look at the code that was live today, you can just glitch.com/Powerup webinar, and you'll be able to look at exactly what I wrote today. It's all there, and like I said, you can remix it and start building your own.
Excellent. That's awesome. And a great thing to know is that we're obviously here if you have any questions. So I think there's the email that would be sent out would be for myself or through Bentley. So just hit reply on that, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions you have, or if you get stuck on anything. But it looks like we've done great for time here. I think we've answered, I think, every question. If I missed someone, I apologize. It's sometimes hard to see through GoToWebinar all the questions, but I think we got to them all.
Looks like one
just came in? All right.
Yeah. Is there a way to write Power-Ups for the mobile Trello app? Currently, no. That's something that we want to enable in the future, but it's not something you can do right now.
Yeah, hopefully that's something we can do in the future for sure. All right, thanks for catching that, Bentley. I was about to close down the webinar.
Yeah.
No, it was great. No, we still have a minute. We still have like 30 seconds left, so I know sometimes it's a little bit harder to type into GoToWebinar, but again, Bentley, you did an awesome job. Like I said, I think I've learned a lot. I think Glitch is a great tool to kind of quickly get started and copy kind of the repo that you have there. So I think that's a valuable tool.
Yeah, well, thank you everyone for listening.
Yeah, and all right, so we have thanks for the great session. Awesome. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Like I said, there'll be an email coming from us within a week, hopefully with a recording or a little bit sooner. But again, thank you all so much for coming and attending, and we'll all see you next time.